When we were given this topic, of course, we all knew we had to sort of stay on top of it because it seems to be changing all the time. So, I did a little Googling, and I actually have a question for you. I'm wondering if anyone knows what the Oxford Dictionary word was of the year for 2020.
Supply chain.
No, not for 2020.
Supply chain.
It was lockdown. Boo. We don't like that one. How about, so they did just announce the Oxford Dictionary word for 2021, and I did look it up earlier today. Yes, but I looked it up, but realized that supply chain didn't get it just because it's two words. So that's got to be the only reason why. Anyway, my name's Sarah Davey. I'm the president of SourceOne. SourceOne is a data and technology platform to help hotels reduce costs and manage their contracts. I'm here with several of our industry partners, very distinguished gentlemen who have extensive years in the industry and also represent quite a cross-section of the industry. So each one of them looks at supply chain and the issues we're facing here from a very different angle. So I'm going to have them introduce themselves when they're asked their questions, and I told them they can stand, because I know in the back you can't see us very well, but I think they think that's kind of strange. So I will sit down, and we will start with you, Vince. So Vince, can you please give us just a 50-foot view of where we are, especially in food and beverage, with supply chain, and where you think this is going?
Certainly. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Vince Purvis. I'm the president of Consolidated Concepts. My background has been in the hospitality business since I was probably 15, 16 years old. First job as a dishwasher, and kind of worked my way through. But spent 28 years at Cisco in the national sales and distribution side of the business. So kind of morphed in from restaurant operations, a little bit of hotel engagement during that time period, and then into distribution. So over the last year, obviously understanding the word lockdown, vaccine, and now supply chain seems to be on everybody's lips today. You look at every news cast going out there, they're talking about supply chain. So supply chain is no secret that it's been very challenged. And I'm very well connected still with many of the distribution companies out there and manufacturers and operators in our set. And current state today, when we were going through this lockdown, was service levels were somewhere in the low 70s coming out of, I guess, the resurgence of, opening up and the demand. And it's just peaking a little bit over 85, 86%. So there's been still a challenge in the marketplace with supply chain. Every case, if you look at it from that perspective, for every 100 cases, operators are being shorted. And obviously we know that that is being driven through the entire supply chain, from manufacturing, for labor, for fuel, for truckers. It's just all the way pervasive through the entire system. So it's still fractured. It's improving slightly, but not at the rate of the demand. I think we've seen so much information today talking about occupancy and growth and demand and where we're going with things. It just hasn't caught up yet. So it's pretty fractured still, Sarah.
What do you think about sort of the dynamic of the major players when you look at food distributors, manufacturers, and operators? Is the supply chain affecting that dynamic between those players?
To dovetail off that, absolutely. I mean, I think everybody in this room, as you're looking at your current supply chain network, whether you have committed distribution from your distributor to your properties, your manufacturer relationships, it's kind of tenuous to some degree because everybody's scrambling. I think I saw a note on one of the other screens about somebody's having to go to Costco just to get supplies. You're seeing last-minute bookings or resurgence of conference or events or things that are putting a strain on supply chain. And part and parcel, you're having to be flexible. And I think that's the key today is you are always counting on that distributor or manufacturer to meet your needs, and they're not able to. So you have to be flexible, nimble, not overbearing and demanding, because the marketplace right now, and you've seen it to some degree, is some manufacturers, distributors are saying, kind of is what it is, take it or leave it, so to speak. So you're kind of navigating a little bit in that space of, You want to be aggressive to get what you need, but at the same time, you don't want to burn the bridge to where they're going, okay, fine, I'll take that real estate, if you will, and move it to somebody else.
Great. Yeah, so Kareem, as a luxury hotel operator, what are the biggest pain points you're seeing here as a result of the supply chain problem?
None. No. You see this gray hair? That's all COVID related. No. Thank you, Sarah. I'm Kareem Lakani with Northwood Hospitality. I oversee food and beverage and procurement, and like Vince, I started off as a dishwasher. So coming up from ground up, the challenges with the supply chain don't always impact the guest, but also our internal guest. So when we talk about retention of our service team members, we have to look at that. And the areas that we were challenged with and are still continued are, proteins being really difficult. In 2020, it was okay to get primal cuts, and the prices had really gone down, but ground beef went through the roof. And so people, wanted burgers, things like that. And all that ground beef, when we shut down, started to deploy into the grocery stores. So we had to go back to and re-engineer the menus to see how we could take care of our guests. The other challenges, of course, everybody knows, is, we had opportunities with PPE, which was a real challenge at that time, and having to mandate masks, working with proper masks, having the front line being safe was a key element for us. The other side today, the pain point is we're looking at developing more properties, building new restaurants, and right now kitchen equipment is a real challenge. For example, we're planning to open a cafe in Charleston, South Carolina, and our goal is to open in May, but we're being pushed back because freezers, walk-ins are 4 to 5 months out. Working with Perlick and equipment such as that is a real challenge. So there's so much pent-up demand, but the supply chain is really bogged down. The key here is to have great relationships with your vendor partners. Treat them as your guest. Make sure that they're in the same boat, and it's a real challenge for us. We had problems with getting water. You heard earlier that with Elizabeth that getting beverage, alcoholic beverage, is a challenge. So people want to spend money, but we just can't take it. And so some of the creative ways of us dealing with it at the same time was, menu engineering, data analysis from Avero, making sure that we keep in touch with our vendors on a weekly, sometimes on a bi-weekly basis of what's available, what's not available, and making menu changes immediately. The good thing was with QR codes, we could make changes, in the day for the day much faster. So that was a big advantage as far as technology. At the end of the day, it is creating relationships with your team on the ground and then your vendor partners at the same time.
Great. Yeah, I was wondering about that QR code. It does seem like that would make it easier to change things more quickly.
Yeah, especially we could print a menu for, in the restaurants or things like that. But for in-room dining, when you can't get some of the proteins or product, we could change it pretty fast.
Wow,
yeah.
That's great. So Bill, it's my understanding that one of the complexities of this situation is that it's the products that are in limited supply are kind of shifting all the time. So like at one time I heard there was a major textile shortage, and then liquid amenities, and now we're hearing beef, alcohol. So tell us a little more about yourself and also how you recommend your clients look at this challenge.
Thank you, Sarah. So my name is Bill Hersh. I'm the CEO of the company that just acquired American Hotel Register. I'm very happy to be here with you today. And the company that I'm with is actively investing in the luxury segment, in the luxury hotel segment in the U.S. This year, we're going to invest somewhere around $250 million in product. And I wish I could tell you that it will all be there in January. Wish I could tell you that it would all be there in January. The shifting that we're seeing today didn't start today. You know, the writing was on the wall back in March and April when we started seeing the constraints, primarily at that time with inbound freight and outbound freight. And if you understand supply chain, it's not just us getting it into our warehouse and getting it from our warehouses to you. We have about 1 million square feet of warehouses in the US today. But it really begins with getting raw materials from Africa and getting raw materials from around the world into the factories and then getting it from the factories. So this freight cost that we talk about impacts the product that we get and it impacts the costs significantly. We're seeing shortages right now, as you said, on amenities. So what we do with it is that the majority of the products that we get either have raw materials or finished product located throughout the world. And I say or because just because we're getting product from China today doesn't mean that China is the one place. They have to get the glycerin, they have to get the other raw ingredients from throughout the world into China in order to get it out. So today we're seeing constraints on the liquid amenities, the soaps. We're moving to other manufacturing locations to try to alleviate that burden. We work with some of your companies like Gilchrist and Marietta and so on and so forth to distribute their products. And I'm really happy to report that they're also taking lead roles in shifting their licensing and shifting their formulas, and they're doing everything that they can to make sure that the product's being delivered. So yeah, we had textiles last month, amenities this month, hopefully not toilet paper in March again. I think we've had enough of the toilet paper issues, but absolutely, we're accommodating it through our manufacturing partners, our sourcing partners to try to stabilize it.
Great. Yeah, you mentioned freight and surcharges. How would you tell the operators in the room, you know, how to look at those charges and how to manage those charges?
Currently, our company's not putting them on as line items for the same reason that many of the luxury hotels never put on fuel surcharges or electric surcharges when that happened. They're very hard to manage. Our pricing at the end of the day is dictated by what we have and what the competition does, as well as cost. So just to put the line item on, I think would send wrong messages. But as far as how to deal with them, I think everybody has to understand that today, when we started out for the first part of the year, our inbound and outbound freight were relatively flat to previous years. In the last 9 months of this year, we have tripled the cost of inbound freight and outbound freight to the point that today what you pay for products, 20% of what you pay for products of our cost is represented by just freight. So, and the freight is caused by the same issues that we've talked about up here so far. Labor, you know, it's not our labor that's going up. We don't have the same problems in distribution that y'all have with labor at your hotels. But what we do have problems with is getting the labor in the trucks, getting the laborers to unload it. You have additional charges that are called drayage, for instance. We hear about the container sitting on ships. Great, when it comes off of the ship and it sits on the dock, the clock starts ticking and the charges start. And if we don't have trucks to pick it up to put it onto railway, it just clicks, ticks, 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 and it continues to cost more and more.
Yeah, that's actually a great segue to the next question, which is for you, Merv, which is about actually sometimes these supply chain, you know, is actually a scapegoat for labor shortages. And I mean, it's hard to almost untangle the two, right? So how do large CPG brands like General Mills, one of America's leading companies, how do they look at the complexity of labor versus supply chain?
Sure, thank you for the question. My name is Merv Moorhead. I've worked for General Mills for 30 years. Half of my time has been on the retail side of the business. and then the last 15 years has been on the food service side of the business. I too, apparently you have to be a dishwasher in order to get up there, because that's where I started.
There's nothing
Okay.
wrong with
job
that.
as
There's
well.
nothing
So
wrong with starting as
I
a
feel good
dishwasher.
about that.
Okay.
So the labor issue is absolutely intertwined with all the supply chain issues. Bill talked a little bit earlier about the cost of trucking. We have in America we're short 80,000 truckers, 80,000. So whenever we would go out and normally contract to pick up product, you now have to go on the spot market. And when you go onto the spot market in order to get product from point A to point B, the cost for that goes up significantly. Beside that, you have a raw materials issue. We had a number of products that had a particular raw material that we could no longer find in the US. We had to go to China, flew the product over on a 747. At the same time, we put more product on a ship in order to come over to follow up the 747. So suppliers are going to extraordinary measures in order to try and help them meet the demand that we're having. But when we look at overall, labor issues, we've got to find more people to go into our plants and work there. And there's a lot of turnover because people have the ability to go from one place to another. We've probably turned over about 20% of our overall number of employees in our plants. And you might think, well, you replace them. Well, yes, but the efficiency in which they work is a lot less. And I'll give you an example for a warehouse. If you have an employee who's very experienced, they're picking about 180, let's say, cases per period of time. Someone who is new is picking 40 cases in that same period of time. So the experienced person is 4x more efficient than the person you're bringing on. And oh, by the way, the mispicks go up, the damages go up, and the things that go on the trucks, when they go out, all of a sudden they have to come back because they were mispicked. So there's not only bringing labor in, but it's making sure that that labor is experienced. Same thing when you're running a line. You have experienced labor that can run that line very, very efficiently. When you bring new people on, it takes time to get that up to speed. So hopefully the people that we bring on stay for a period of time where you could get them to run very, very efficiently. So there was a chart on one of the other presentations that talked about Amazon. And that is the 800-pound gorilla right now in the marketplace because they are sucking up the labor that we are looking for in our plants. So where you have a large Amazon distribution facility, they're pulling in labor from other places, and it becomes very, very difficult to source labor. Sometimes we'll have to go to external supply chain, which we've done in order to meet demand, but labor is interwoven amongst everything within the supply chain right now.
Absolutely. This is just a question, I guess, for any of you, which is, this question of, so if you have a lot of labor turnover, how do you get them trained? How do you deal with training? And because we've just connected labor to supply chain, how do you deal with training so that you can move product or improve your guest experience? Yeah.
I'll take that first. It's induction by fire. And what I mean by that is it's challenging as far as when you're short team members to really have the time to train them. We do ourselves a disservice when we don't train team members appropriately. That brings a lot of frustration from the team member standpoint or the guest standpoint. So I think it's really behooves us to really look at, by losing 800,000 or more people in our industry, what has caused that, okay? Our work environment is not good. I mean, when you look at, when I started off as a dishwasher, basically, there were no fatigue mats. You were basically getting a steam without paying for the sauna experience. At the same time, the chefs would scream and yell at you and throw pots and pans at you, which doesn't happen anymore, except for with Gordon Ramsay, but I don't know how he can get away with that. But at the end of the day, you know, we have to do the right thing. I mean, we were talking about health and wellness a couple of sessions before us, and it's the same individual that, you know, maybe is looking at their health and wellness. And one of the areas that, you know, we're talking about, and we talked about it, Sarah, a few months ago, is, you know, we have the opportunity to have an employee dining facility. And, you know, you look at Facebook, Google, they create a whole different environment, healthy alternatives, work, play, relax. And so, you know, let's not call it a cafeteria. Let's call it a community center where they can interact, give healthy alternatives to sustain them, give them the energy drinks that they need to be able to stand on their feet for 8, 10, 12 hours a day. Because we're so short-staffed, we have to do other things. So it's not only the pay, but it's the environment, and we have to make sure that we invest in our future to get them back.
That's right. I love that idea. It's really innovative to actually, you know, treat the restaurant staff like they may be at Google, where they can go and grab snacks or get food or have a hot lunch and be treated with some dignity in that way. Were you going to say something, Vince?
Yeah, there's a lot of dynamics. I mean, we've obviously, for conferences like this, to talk through what's going on in the industry, we see a lot of demand, we see a lot of opportunities in supply chain, we've seen increase in costs and labor and all those dynamics. There's so much that we have to try to balance today. And I think, you know, from the employee side, the labor side, of all the things that we need to try and make sure we create those good work environments, treat them with respect, and do the right thing for our associates, because ultimately, the team front line is what is pushing forward our brand. They're executing our expectations. And I know today we've talked so many things about, you know, the cost going up and the emotional side and the engagement of the experience. All those things are critical mass. Transactional components are easy. It's about price, it's about convenience or whatever. But when you have somebody that's spending their money to have that experience at a resort, at a hotel, for a meal, if the value is connected emotionally, they're willing to pay for it. And I think the data supports that people are willing to pay for it. But you got to execute. And that's got to happen all the way through leadership, downline to management, downline to frontline, that everybody's got to be doing it the same. You've got to walk the walk, talk the talk, you've got to do all that. Somebody talked earlier about the front line was doing all they're doing and leadership was on Zoom, right? It's like, you got to have that balance a little bit. But at the end of the day, making sure that we are executing to the top excellence that we possibly can through all of these dynamics. If the food's going to cost more and the experience is going to cost more, it better be a good experience. Making sure the associate feels good about that as well, because they're the ones executing that. So labor's a challenge, obviously. I mean, this was a challenge in the industry with distribution before COVID. The driver network in distribution was retiring out, and backfilling those jobs was not the same type of person that wanted to do that. There was different entitlements and different rates and different, you know, components to it. So we've got to reinvent that engagement with our associates today, and at the same time, you know, continuing to invest. But we need to be accountable. Let's make sure we are doing the very best we can for our guest experience. And everybody's got to feel that from the moment somebody puts their feet on the ground to the facility, to the front desk, to the hostess, to whatever that action is. We've got to execute very well. And I think the guests will pay for the value of that execution if it's right. They don't want to be cheated. They don't want to feel slighted. If it's a great product, let's make sure it's a great experience at that time. So.
And Kareem, I think you had a story about guest expectations and related to supply chain with soaps or things where you had to, you know, what was your story related to that?
You know, we have, from the amenity standpoint, we have a partnership with Molton Brown. And, you know, one of our luxury properties in Charleston just could not get any soaps, bars of soap. And we've gone to, you know, sustainable product where it's bulk amenities, not using the 30 ml product. And Molton Brown just couldn't deliver us the soaps. So, you know, our properties had to go, unlike Costco, and go and get bars of soap. Now, normally a bar of soap is about 45 grams. The only thing that Molton Brown had was a 75-gram bar of soap. So for somebody who's staying there for a couple of days, you get this big bar of soap, and it's like almost a little bit smaller than a Dove bar of soap. But they were kind enough and said, look, we're not going to charge you extra. This is what we have, and we would be happy to ship that. But the vendor partner just would not answer the property call. But when I picked up the phone and called them directly, it took me 2 or 3 times to get to the right person. But finally, we got results pretty fast. But at the end of the day, they're also changing their product, which is a totally plant-based soap. So they were changing their factories, all those sorts of things, but not really planning for the demand that was coming their way at the same time. So that was something that we had to overcome. I mean, from our, I do want to say that from a luxury product standpoint, we have the London West Hollywood here, and we've seen just in the last 2 months, the demand with all the shutdown that California went through. Thanksgiving was our best ever from a room standpoint, from a food and beverage standpoint. And as a company, we have done tremendously well on the resort sides. And our profitability exceeds 2019 pre-COVID. Wow. Our revenues have exceeded 2019 pre-COVID. And the demand is so high. It's great to be in this sort of a situation to be able to pivot when you are shutting everything down and can't get product, then it's a different story. But here's an opportunity where the guest, as Vince was talking about, does not have a problem paying extra, but give them, fulfill the promise. If you are luxury, fulfill the promise. No matter what it takes, exceed the expectation, be honest with the guest, make sure you let them know if you're out of a product ahead of time, because they do understand. But how can you, take it and give them something that is a takeaway, a memorable experience? How is it that, if they come for an afternoon tea, make sure that, you're offering everything else, but maybe you can buy them a glass of Prosecco. And that, that memory is going to pay off 100-fold back.
Yeah, that's a great tip. This is a question maybe for both Merv and Bill. So in my research we're moving now to the part about innovations and where we think maybe technology might help us navigate this, because this might not, might be a situation that we are in for some time. So one of the innovations I heard about that I don't know much about, but is about anticipating consumer demand and some of these like technologies that can, I don't even know how it works exactly, but have your companies that you know of explored these kind of tools that can help anticipate consumer demand?
Sure, absolutely. So we've worked with technical innovation in a couple of different ways. The first is from a forecasting perspective. We used to have a supply forecast and a demand forecast, and quite honestly, they never always totally lined up. So what we've done is we've taken AI and put them in between supply and demand. So the AI starts talking with both sides of the equation in order to get a very, very solid overall plan. Once you get that plan, it then goes down to the entire supply chain. It sets up our warehouse, it sets up our trucking, it sets up our purchasing from raw materials. It does all of those things. So AI, and we just started this about a year ago, is going to have a significant impact in our ability to forecast what's happening with our product, not only now, but into the future. So we're investing a lot in that space because the efficiency internally, because we have over 200 facilities that we're working with. So think about the supply chain, over 200 facilities across the world. It's not just in the US, we have facilities across the world. So AI is playing a significant role in how we forecast our supply side and our demand side.
We've also made significant investments in technology. We use the SAP Enterprise solution, the best of best, including all of the analytics that go with it. And we've got things like robotics called Jennifer that speaks into the ears of the pickers that tell them where to go, how high to go, where it is, how to pick it. If you haven't seen a modern day distribution center, I'd really encourage you to connect up with one of your distribution centers, distributors, and take a tour because it's really marvelous. But that's the technology side. And one of the things that we can't forget is the relationship that you have, the hotel management companies in particular, the hotels in particular, the franchise companies in particular, to strengthen the relationship with distribution and group purchasing organizations. Okay, you've got to consolidate the buys. You have to be able to have that relationship that you can depend. When we buy hundreds of containers, okay, to accommodate all of our customers, the customers have to be on the front end of those relationships that are kind of guiding us into their forecasts instead of just negotiating to buy a container for their properties or 2 containers for their. That fragmentation of supply chain has done more damage. Again, we didn't just get here just all of a sudden, but the fragmentation can really be improved significantly if you strengthen the relationships with your distributors and with your GPOs in particular, and utilize the sourcing, forecasting technologies that come together to kind of stabilize supply chain.
Great, I'm sure Vince.
No, that's a great call out, Bill, and thank you for that, because I think as we talked about from a manufacturing perspective with what they're doing with technology and AI, from a distribution standpoint with robotics and technology and AI, et cetera. And earlier, somebody mentioned about the food and beverage technology component traditionally where it's been kind of slow in that side of the business. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of consumer to business, business to consumer applications and software out there. But when you look at the supply chain component of technology, engaging with manufacturing, engaging with distribution, there's not a lot of choices out there, and that's where, from a PSA perspective, our technologies that we've built out is really integrated into a lot of the distribution and manufacturing. Because you think about what, retail has been very big in technology for years. The minute that product is scanned at the checkout counter, it's kind of talking about replenishment already. And if you think about that component of supply chain from food and hospitality, of when you have, occupancy rates being booked out 4 to 6 weeks out, and parties and bookings and things like that, that can kind of feed supply chain to distribution to manufacturing. That's where we need to fill that gap with technology. And I encourage you to look at technology in the supply chain to your distribution, to your manufacturing. And as Bill talked about, engaging with purchasing, group purchasing, and technology to help. What once was a 10, 15 people deep team in supply chain and sourcing and procurement has really contracted quite a bit. We've talked earlier today about adding resources back into the industry with where there's some uncertainty still. A lot of folks are looking at outsourcing of solutions in certain projects and capabilities. So I think from a supply chain perspective, dig into your data, dig into that technology, use that to your advantage to have line of sight to inventory, the soap issue. If you know you have a supply chain issue on soap 2-3 weeks out, you're being proactive. If it comes down to the supplier not having the product today when you order it for tomorrow, you're already behind so far, the 8 ball, if you will, from that perspective, to figure out where you're going to go with it. So I implore, and I think it's nothing new that we're not talking about today, is technology is something very key. There's a ton out there. You got to action against it. So that's a big component as it relates to engaging with distribution and manufacturing.
Yeah. I like what you said about engaging your GPO. Obviously, from Vince and my perspective, we use some common software that does master matching, and I think if you can plug into a company that can match products up as close as possible, in order for you to basically find a new soap that meets your specs. Maybe it's a 82 match, but maybe they can find a 96% match. And so that's where I think the data side of this business can help us obviously navigate some supply chain. What other innovations have you guys seen, technology-wise or data-wise?
Go ahead, please.
I wouldn't say this is about technology, but when we come out with new products, and I think for our business, some people have backed away from food innovation. We believe that not only priority number one is getting supply out, but you can't get rid of the pipeline of innovation that's coming out. So as we look at innovation, we're trying to serve two different purposes. The first is, how do you delight the end consumer, right? So that's all of our end consumer. How do we delight that individual or those individuals? And the second is, how do we meet the demands of the market? So we know that there's labor issues. We know that there are not only labor issues, but skilled labor issues. So what can we do as a manufacturer to bring products to market that are foolproof? So we brought out a freezer to oven croissant. We brought the equipment over from Europe. We set it up here. And so we have a product now that is just outstanding. It's foolproof, and you don't have to be a baker in order to do it. And you could bake off one at a time, two at a time, 10 at a time, 20 at a time. But we're trying to understand what the needs are for the individual operation and build products to meet those needs. So if we could keep our eye on that, knowing who the end consumer is and who the operators are and what their needs are, I think we'll find something that will be successful for everyone in the industry.
Yeah, I actually had the pleasure to tour the General Mills facility a couple weeks ago. We were visiting Radisson, which is one of our important clients, and they actually are helping them navigate breakfast. Obviously, hotels are thinking about breakfast given these circumstances, and the product that Merv's talking about is really incredible. They actually did it up in 20 different ways to show how versatile the product was. Really great. So, were you going to say something, Kareem?
Yeah, on the AI stuff, as far as, from the distribution side, it's imperative that we can, from a consumer standpoint, the buyer standpoint, can see exactly what inventory you have or don't have. So we're working with Birch Street and trying to work with Cisco to rather do a punch out to do a punch through, so we can see real-time inventory, because they already have the system. How can it be integrated with our e-procurement system simultaneously, so the chef or the director of purchasing or the director of F&B who's out there has to get back on the floor with the limited staffing? How can you make our jobs easier? So if you could have a integration of all the tools that you have on your back end, on our front end, that it makes it much more easier. And also from a pricing standpoint, we can see real-time pricing. And then, what we do is we do scanning of all our inventories. So if the price is updated electronically, real-time, then when we do our month-end inventories or bi-weekly inventories, or we do our order guides, we can see what we're buying at what price. And at the same time, with product fluctuation in pricing, we've had to take our pricing up in hotels in double digits. And in the last year and a half, in most of our hotels, we've had to raise prices 3 to 5 times. And there has been no consumer resistance at all. And especially on the beverage side, we've also not only been, offering wells, but we've had to take our well to a super premium, because when we offer that sort of pricing, the consumer wants quality, and they have no problem spending, $18 to $20 for a cocktail, but it better be the damn good cocktail in a beautiful glass,
Right.
Not in a bag, not in a box. And that's the. Some of the luxury properties, I call it, are still sitting in a COVID fog. And the consumer is out there coming into your space, spending $500, $700, $10,000 a night. They don't expect it. They can buy this stuff at home. Why can they not get it in the hotels that they're paying premium for? And they want a great experience. So we're in the, as we call it, entertainment business, not only on the food side, but also on the room side. And it's important for us to make sure that we fulfill that promise.
Right. On the cost management side, you just started using our Inside Track software. I know you're kind of new to it, but what made you want to look at that as a way to manage cost?
Well, I think it's imperative. Exactly what I just talked about is to make business decisions instantaneously, as we're buying. So the beauty about Inside Track through Source One, through group purchasing, it's important to make sure that partnership and the tools that they provide, you utilize to the best of your ability to make business decisions as quickly as possible so you can be profitable, okay? At the same time, it is important to make sure that the team on the ground understands the value of all the tools that you put out there. Because from a corporate standpoint, yes, it's great that you put all this out there, but you've got to make it user-friendly. And with Inside Track, you can see market analysis with what you're paying at the real time, and you can go back to a week out and 2 weeks out, and then see where you have to fluctuate with pricing. You can also see buying habits from each one of your properties, and when you have national core prices already negotiated, and some food and beverage director or chef starts to deviate, you can go back to them and ask the question, why did we do what we did? And the challenge is that they don't understand that there's going to be some vendor partner knocking on their door, is going to give you a quick deal for the week or for the day or whatever it may be, and then they're going to make up that deficit. So it's important they understand the relationship of corporate pricing with GPOs, which is very, very important to make sure that your business is profitable and continues to drive and thrive.
Great.
I think from a simple tagline component is inspect rather than expect, right? So if you have those tools and technology, you got to use them, because a lot of people have a lot of software out there. They get it, they pay for it, and it sits there. And if you don't use it, it's a waste. You got to be able to action on that technology.
Well, so we're coming close to the end, so we have to save a few minutes for the question that everybody is waiting for here, which is, what are our predictions for when this supply chain situation will start clearing itself? So I was just wondering if anyone has like a crystal ball or anything.
I would say that my crystal ball is cracked. But I have something here, the good old-fashioned 8-ball here, and we can shake it here,
Okay.
and really see what comes out.
Let's have Vince. What's the question, Vince? What are we going to ask it?
So at the end of the day, are we going to be back to where we were before, and when will that happen?
Well, Vince, I'm sorry to say, but it says the future looks hazy. So, nobody can predict this. I mean, with Omicron and everything else coming our way, if we can be nimble, I think that's going to be our advantage. But the beauty about this is the consumer is knocking our door down, literally, to get into our space. How can we fulfill that promise?
Absolutely. I read a quote that you'd rather have, I forget exactly how it went, but the fact that you're able to charge the most and you have the demand that you want, and it's not all about cost. It's like that's the better situation to be in, and now we have to figure out how to meet, the supply.
We've all seen a ton of data, right? A lot of stuff up in the last several hours and presentations about inflation, cost of goods, all those things. Where's it going to be in 2022, 2024, 2025? Recovery's coming, it's in time. We're still at a challenge in supply chain. We've seen inflation at an all-time rate. It's going up a little bit more on certain categories. It's going to be a challenge for 6-8 months at least more before it even settles down to the point where you can start wrapping your arms around it. Great advice from Bill and Kareem and Merv about really having collaboration and communication with your distributor partners, manufacturer partners. Be flexible, be nimble, communicate. I mean, those are all key components today in supply chain.
And
Try to
embrace
have your eyes in
technology.
front of it, besides behind it, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. I was just saying, and also embrace some of these technologies that are coming out. Obviously, we're all trying to learn about. There's so much to learn about, but hopefully, the combination of good communication and technology will help us find a way through. So, well, thank you all so much. Thank you all very much for listening, and we've enjoyed it.
Thank you.
All right.